So, Star Wars Outlaws is finally here for those who purchased the early access editions, and even for those who didn't, it's only a few days away. And with nearly 40 hours of game time under my belt already, including starting a second playthrough to figure out what I could have done better in the first one, today I wanted to run you guys through 5 things you should do early on in the game that will set you up really well when it comes to getting some easy credits, unlocking some nice upgrades and items, and even just some settings that are worth changing as well. This video will be completely spoiler free, as will all content on this channel in the coming weeks, and so without wasting any time, let's get stuck into 5 things you need to do early on in Star Wars Outlaws. Now, the first one is actually going to be technically 4 different things in itself, and all of these will add up to essentially 1,000 credits without really needing to do anything at all. Now, for the first one, if you guys have played the opening of the game already, where you start off on Canto Bight, then unfortunately you won't be able to go back and do this, but for any of you who haven't started, you will be able to do this from the very beginning of the game. In the intro of the game, you will speak to a character called Bram, and after some of the opening cutscenes are finished, you will then essentially be able to go out and explore the small map of Canto Bight that's available this early on in the game. Now, before you progress to the first objective, in the main cantina where you talk to Bram, there's actually a Fathier race over in the corner just near the door that you can bet on, and it turns out that the winner of this race is actually fixed, as are most races in this game. Now, you guys don't need to go and find it yourself, but there is a hidden data pad that you can find when you just wander around, and it will tell you to bet on the oldest Fathier. And so just go and bet on this third one called Gertu's Favorite, and that will pocket you an easy 38 credits for only a 5 credit bet. Now, keep in mind, 38 credits is barely worth noting once we get about 2 or so hours into this game, but I thought it was worth mentioning considering you pretty much have to do nothing at all. Now, the next easy way to make credits is once you've made it to Toshara, and pretty much the first objective you'll have once you get to Toshara is making it to Makal's Cantina, which is pretty much just the main cantina on Miragana. Now, when you walk in, you want to walk over to the left of the bar here, and there is this mini game that's kind of built into the bar there. This is just a simple memory game, so it's one of those games where you kind of have to watch the item and it will move around, and then you just need to confirm where it is at the end. It is very, very easy, and if you play this, it's only a 10 credit entry, but you will earn 333 credits just for doing about 4 rounds of this, and like I said, it is very, very easy to do. Now, another guaranteed way to make some credits as well is your very first Sabak game, and you can find one right on the path where you came to get to Makal's Cantina, over on the right as you sort of walk down the stairs in Miragana. Now, not only is this worth doing just to kind of learn the game, Sabak is honestly so much fun. I've probably spent a good 3 to 4 hours just playing Sabak alone, so it's good to just learn the rules. This first game will pretty much be a tutorial for you, but from what I can tell, it is a guaranteed win. Every single time that I've played it, both in the 2 playthroughs I've done so far, as well as my playtest in Sydney a few weeks back, the cards I was getting and stuff were exactly the same, and I was winning every single time. So this will also give you a guaranteed 150 credits, which again, these are all starting to add up quite nicely. Now, the last one, I'm not going to spoil the plot. I want you guys to experience the game for yourself, but there will eventually come a time, not too long after you make it to Makal's Cantina, where you will meet your first underboss in the game as part of the reputation system. It is pretty much the introduction to all of the syndicates. Now, when you do meet that underboss, you will end up with a very nice ring in your inventory, as Nyx decides to steal that for you. When you look at it in your inventory, it does mention it could come in handy later on, but I actually did that in my first playthrough and it barely did anything. It pretty much increases your reputation with a certain syndicate by about 0.5%, so it's literally not even worth hanging on to whatsoever. And if you sell it, you can sell it for 500 credits, which in combination with all the other stuff that I've just mentioned, that's going to net you about 1,000 credits within the first sort of hour of the game, which will get you set up very, very well for the rest of the game. Now, moving on to the next thing that you guys should be doing, and this is to do with an ability called the Armored Undershirt. This essentially just gives you an extra bar to your health, so you start off with 3, and this will essentially give you that 4th little health bar, pretty much giving Kay a health buff. And trust me, you're going to probably need this. This game is actually a little bit more difficult at times than you're probably expecting, so this one is very, very clutch. Now, what you need to do is you'll need to find 8 coarse weave, which is a material that you can find pretty much anywhere on the planet. Keep in mind, I ended up with about 90 in my first playthrough without even attempting to find any, and so I'm not going to show you exact locations. You will just come across this. If you just see anything out of the world, just pick it all up. There's no inventory limit or anything, and you will very easily find 8 coarse weave. Once you have the 8, you also need to buy 1 iron weave from a vendor in Mirogana. You can find one here, as you can see on the map. It's not too far from Mikhail's Cantina. You will need to obviously spend some credits, but it is definitely worth it. And once you buy that iron weave, as well as having found those 8 coarse weave, if you then go into your abilities menu, or realistically it will actually pop up saying that you can unlock this, but in the abilities menu under the Bram Expert, as you can see, you can get that armored undershirt, and this is going to come in very, very clutch later on in the game. Now, before we go any further, if you guys are new to the channel and you are interested in more Star Wars Outlaws content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. There is plenty more content on the way. I'm hoping to do daily content for pretty much the entire month of September, so make sure you don't miss out. Now, the next one is actually just some settings that I think are worth changing, or at least noting that you can change them. The first one is to do with the slicing. The slicing in this game is a little bit repetitive, and I actually don't mind it. Keep in mind, my whole first playthrough I had this on, but on my second playthrough I've turned it off, and it's honestly a lot more enjoyable. The slicing sort of mini game in this mode is essentially Wordle. If you guys have played that, you just kind of need to guess the location of the little icons, and although it's kind of fun when you first start out, it does get boring very quickly, so I do think it's worth actually turning that off. Now, for the rhythm game, I would recommend not turning that off. That is so much fun. That's one of my favorite kind of lockpick mechanics in any game that I've ever played, so I'd probably keep that one on. It's really fun, but I definitely think it's worth turning that slicing off. There's also a few settings that I think are worth changing. It's worth probably turning the motion blur down. I know a lot of people don't like motion blur. I turned mine all the way down to about 10 because I like just a little bit of it, but having it at 100 I think would be a fair bit too much. And then the same thing for the camera shake, I turned that down to 10 as well. Games with heaps of camera shake are often very, very frustrating. Now, depending on your platform, it's also worth changing the point of view just to give you a bit more vision on your screen. It doesn't really matter that much, but I just think it looks a little bit nicer and you can kind of see more enemies on your screen. And then lastly, one that I noted was also the subtitles are quite big in this game. Obviously you can just turn them off, but if you want the subtitles on, there is a setting that you can actually just make them smaller, and I feel like that kind of keeps them out of the way of your screen, because like I said, by default they are actually quite big. Now, the next one is a little bit more in depth, and I'm going to try not to sort of hold your hand through this because I think it's worth experiencing for yourself. This is a really fun little side mission that you can do that will land you 5,000 credits, an awesome Imperial skin for your speeder, and a really nice shift token for Sabak as well. And although it is a little bit time consuming, it's relatively easy to do. After that point in the story that I talked about earlier, when you've met the first underboss, you can then talk to Danka, who pretty much gives you contracts and helps progress the story. And the next mission she'll give you is to find a part for your blaster, and it'll pretty much lead you to where you need to be. I would also recommend speaking to this guy as well near Dunker called Veric. He will actually kickstart a mission to meet the huts as well, which will allow you to do one of these key cards that I'm about to mention, while also completing a mission too, because they are in the same area. Now, once you've done those two things, you want to sneak into the pike area of the map. Now, keep in mind, if you have a good reputation with the pikes, you can just walk in, but if you don't have a good reputation, you can sneak in there through this area that I'm showing you guys from the vendor that Dunker sends you to. It is pretty easy to find. It's kind of just in this back alley, and you can actually sneak into the pike territory. Now, head in there, and then you will just need to sneak past a lot of these guards, and eventually you'll find this little vent that you'll kind of need to hack your way into. Get in there and then pretty much just pick up every item in the room. One of the ones you'll pick up will start this quest, and then there's also some other goodies in there as well. Now, with this quest, you'll need to then find 3 key cards, which will then allow you to open the Pike Vault, which is in this exact same location. And the good thing is that, like I said, I'm not going to hold your hand through this mission. It will mark all of these locations on the map, so you can pretty much figure this all out for yourself. I will just give you some quick tips because some of them are a little bit more difficult than others. Now, the first one, Gorak's keycard, you can find by just doing the mission that Veric gave you that I just mentioned about the huts, which will kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You'll also earn between 500 and 1,000 credits for that mission as well. All you need to do is just complete that hut mission, and once you're in the final building that you need to be in, you can find the key card sitting right here on the table as you walk in, and that is the first key card that you need. The second one is Tizlak's card, and this is probably one of the harder ones in my opinion. Now, again, I'm not going to walk you through this. It's pretty simple at the end of the day, but just for a few tips, I would recommend entering the area via this little back section. You can grapple up and sort of sneak in. You can then stealth through this door, and then from here, pretty much all you need to do is take this cargo barrier by just flicking the switch and then jumping onto it. And once you jump on, on, it will take you over to this area that you can climb up onto, and you can find Tizlak's card here. Keep in mind this room is filled with a lot of enemies, so you probably want to be stealthy, or if you're confident enough, you can definitely just try and take out all of those pikes. Now, the third card is Jinjo's card, which you can find here on the map, and this one is very simple. It's pretty much just a building out in the open, and that means it's very hard to do this one stealthily. It is probably easier to just try and take out the enemies, but if you're gonna do that, I would recommend taking out the alarm. For those who don't know how the alarm works in this game, if the enemies sound that alarm, enemies will just kind of keep respawning until you turn it off, whereas if you disable that alarm, then you can just go guns blazing and they can't bring in reinforcements. So take out that alarm, or you can do what I did and you can just kind of draw them out and then distract them, and then I just snuck all the way around the side and ended up sneaking into the building. Once you're in there, you will get that third key card, and then once you get out of the building, they will see you, but you can pretty quickly just get on your speeder and get away. Now, once you have all three of those key cards, you just need to go back to that first location through the vent in the Pike territory, and once you open this vault, you'll get a heap of credits. Like I said, 5,000 credits, which is an insane way to start the game, and there are some pretty cool items in there as well. Now, the last one on this list for today is very simple, and this is just to simply do a lot of the main missions early on in the game. Now, I'm not telling you guys to rush the game. I think a lot of people who have reviewed the game and said they didn't love it as much as they wished, I think a lot of those people rushed the game. It's not meant to be rushed. This is an open world game, and you should spend time exploring. You should spend time doing contracts for the syndicates and stuff. You shouldn't just beeline the story, because I can guarantee you simply won't enjoy the game as much as you would if you're sort of taking it slow and stopping to smell the flowers. Now, with that being said, early on, there's not a whole lot of exploration you can do, and you actually can't get off Toshara until you've done a few of the main missions, at which point you can then travel to pretty much any planet. So from the point that I've talked about, once you've kind of met that first underboss, I would recommend doing just a little bit of exploring, but for the most part, stick to those main missions. You will get to a point, and again, I'm not going to spoil it, but you'll meet some characters and you will fix the Trailblazer, and at that point you can get off planet, and from there you can literally do whatever you want. You can beeline the main story if you want. You can go and explore and not even do any of the main missions. But to be able to do that, like I said, I would recommend sort of finishing a lot of those early missions just to get that stuff out of the way. But that is it for 5 things that I think you guys should be doing early on in Star Wars Outlaws. Hopefully this video helped you guys out, and if it did, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Like I said, there is plenty more content on the way, and unless I explicitly say so, it is all going to be completely spoiler free. So keep your eyes peeled here on the channel. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and may the Force be with you always.